And welcome. For those of you I haven't had a chance to meet yet, my name is Panita McBrien. I'm the still relatively new Executive Director at the Edmonton Downtown Business Association. I want to start by talking about the connections that we all have to each other and to this land upon which our city is built. Edmonton sits on Treaty 6 territory and within the Métis homelands and the Métis Nation of Alberta Region 4. And these lands have been known by many different names by many different peoples since time immemorial. We acknowledge this land as the traditional territories of many First Nations, including the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Nakota Sioux, as well as Métis and Inuit. Together, we call upon all of our collective honored traditions and spirits to work in building a great city for today and for future generations. I encourage all of you to take a moment out of your day at some point today and think about your own personal relationship to this land and your own hope and vision for its future, and then the personal commitments and the role that you play in achieving that vision. So thank you all for taking the time to be here. I want to acknowledge we have an elected representative in our midst. Thank you to MLA David Shepherd for being here. I don't know where he went now, but he's here. There he is. Whether you're in person or online, thank you so much for taking the time for this important conversation. I think we're all here for this discussion because of a shared understanding that downtown's success and resiliency is absolutely essential to the success of our city as a whole. The core is less than 1% of Edmonton's geographic area, yet we account for almost 10% of all property taxes that are paid in this city. So what happens here, whether positive or negative, has not only a huge impact on our city's tax base, but ultimately our ability as a city and a region to attract and retain investment, talent, tourism, and ultimately to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic economically and socially. City administration has shown great leadership this year on implementing programs like the Residential Construction Grant Program for residential construction projects downtown and the Downtown Vibrancy Strategy, which we were really, really proud to be partners in. But I think we're all very keenly interested now to hear from our future City Council, and most importantly, our future mayor, what kind of leadership they're willing to show and prepared to show on key downtown issues for the coming months and years. So before we get into it, I just want to thank Oilers Entertainment Group. They are such a hardworking team, and I just want to thank the team. I know they're all here somewhere for being so diligent and so gracious and generous and making this day possible, because I'm sure you can all imagine we faced every possible obstacle and bump in the road to get to doing this in-person event here today. So thank you to that team, and thank you to our incredible event planner, Maggie Barton-Baird, for making this possible. So we at the Edmonton Downtown Business Association are so proud to be hosting this discussion, and I'm so honored to work for our board of directors. It's such a committed and hardworking and diverse group of downtown community leaders. I feel privileged to work with this group of people. And so on behalf of our board of directors, I welcome to the stage our board chair, Martin Kennedy.
Great, thanks, Panita. Welcome, everyone, in person and online, to our Future of Downtown Mayoral Candidate Forum. And again, thank you to OEG for hosting us here in Fort Hall. It feels like a very, very long time since we've gathered here in this space, and frankly, that's because it has been. We're excited to see this venue brought back to life again, and safely. I know each of the candidates has been campaigning for many months now, but with the federal election only now complete, and the pandemic still very much a part of our lives, I think it's fair to say that many voters will only now be turning their full attention to the municipal election, which is why we are pleased to convene this conversation at this time so the candidates can share their visions for our downtown and our community. The Edmonton Downtown Business Association has not and will not be endorsing any individual candidate, but that does not mean we are neutral on the future of Edmonton's downtown. Downtown is the beating heart of our region's prosperity. A vibrant downtown attracts talent. It attracts investment. It fosters innovation. It creates culture, and it uplifts and includes everyone. At the Edmonton DBA, we are seeking a productive and energetic partnership with the next mayor and council so that we can work together to realize the enormous potential of our downtown. There's no question the pandemic hit our downtown hard, as it did downtowns across North America. It exacerbated and laid bare the impact of systemic social issues on our most vulnerable fellow citizens. It disrupted whole sectors of the economy. Many of our member businesses have struggled. Some have not survived. And thousands of workers in industries such as hospitality, retail, tourism, and the arts have had their livelihoods profoundly impacted. Getting the COVID-19 recovery right might be one of the most important things the DBA ever does, one of the most important things our city ever does. At the DBA, we have revamped our strategic plan to focus on building that positive future. Over the next 2 years, we've committed to 4 strategic goals: to be the leading voice and a convening force in downtown's recovery, to ensure the downtown community is active in solutions to systemic social issues, to generate continuous service value for our members, and to create and promote a remarkable and attractive downtown experience. That work has already begun, and Panita and the whole DBA office team and the city administration have made great positive strides in downtown this year. Panita, we're fortunate to have you as a leader in our organization and in the community. But the only way to succeed and finish the work we've begun is together. Together with the City of Edmonton and the next Mayor and Council as they implement their economic action plan, together with the community as we realize Edmonton's downtown vibrancy plan, and together with all of our partners and all orders of government as we capture progress, celebrate success, and deliver on new ideas. So we're excited to hear from the candidates about their visions for Edmonton's downtown and how they see us working together. To guide the process, I am pleased to invite award-winning radio broadcaster and downtown resident Chelsea Bird to the stage. Chelsea, thank you again for moderating our mayoral forum today, and I'll turn the proceedings over to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Martin. And thank you to the Downtown Business Association for allowing me to moderate today's event. As Martin said, I host the morning show on 6:30 CHED. News, sports, politics, those are all things that are at the forefront of what we do on 6:30 CHED. I, however, have been on mat leave for the last 4 months. My husband and I just welcomed our baby daughter. Thanks. And we do live downtown, and I really believe that you can raise a family here in the core. So I'm really interested to hear what these candidates have to say about their vision for downtown. I really believe that when we're looking at building a prosperous and thriving Edmonton, we really do have to begin with focusing on the core. So I think today is going to be lots of fun. So without further ado, we'll get things rolling. I just want to go through some rules of engagement and let you know how today is going to operate. The candidates that have been invited to participate in the forum are the top 6 candidates based on the publicly available polling by the end of August 2021. So the candidates invited today include Amarjeet Sohi, Mike Nicol, Kim Krashel, Michael Oshri, Rick Comrie, and Cheryl Watson. Now, for transparency's sake, we didn't receive communication from Mike Nicol's campaign in regards to his participation, so we will proceed without him. In advance of the forum, we did let the candidates know the rules of engagement, and they are that today is a forum. It's not a debate. So candidates, we encourage you to focus on yourself and what you will bring to the table as mayor. Each candidate is going to have the opportunity to answer each question, but they will be timed. Candidates, you'll have 1 minute for introduction and for closing remarks, and 2 minutes to answer each question. You'll be given a 10-second grace period, and then your microphone will be cut, or I will tell you to stop speaking, and be forewarned, I do have a mom voice now, and I'm not afraid to use it on you. We'll ask that you stay in your spot. You can remain seated or standing at your podium throughout the event. And myself and the candidates will not be wearing masks because we're classified as performers for today's event. And of course, as you can clearly see, we're spaced more than 6 feet apart. Now, when it comes to the questions today, all the questions tonight were written to reflect the questions submitted in advance by our stakeholders and our attendees. We encourage you watching live and watching virtually to post on social media during the event. You can use the hashtag YEGDTForum. Candidates, we invite you to answer attendees' questions on social media following the event. And I think that's all I need to let you know. So please join me in welcoming our candidates to the stage. So we'll start with introductions. Candidates, please provide an introduction of yourself to the audience. Again, just a reminder, you have 1 minute each. We will begin with Kim Krashel.
Ready? Okay. I love this city, and I believe this is the most critical ballot you will cast in the next decade. Our city is at a pivotal point in time, and our next mayor will need to hit the ground running with a real understanding of how our city works and what it's like to run a business, and I have that experience. When I left City Council, Edmonton was in good shape. If we continue down the track we're on, Edmonton will be a have-not city. Things need to change, and I am the one to lead that change. I will bring a client service culture to our city administration. I will get our taxes and our spending under control. I will develop a procurement policy that recognizes local businesses for their contributions to our economy. And I'll implement my Main Streets downtown strategy to ensure our city's core is safe, accessible, and welcoming for all. And I will bring a productive and collaborative approach to the mayor's office that will get the very best for our city. I am for Edmonton. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Krashel. Please introduce yourself, Michael Oshri.
Hello. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank the Downtown Business Association for doing so much to draw attention to the challenges that we have downtown and for advancing productive solutions for downtown. I'd also like to thank all of you for attending today and braving Mike Nichols' downtown travel advisory. Good for you. We have serious social issues that need to be addressed with serious solutions, not a travel advisory that scares Edmontonians from visiting downtown and hurts our image and our investment attraction needs. Downtown has enormous challenges. Issues like safety, homelessness, relentless construction, traffic jams that actually seem intentional, fleeing retail, tax assessment write-downs, empty office buildings. And over the next hour, I'm going to outline very specific plans that I'm going to do to spearhead and address all of these problems and ensure that we have a vibrant core in our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Oshri. Please introduce yourself, Ms. Watson.
We didn't need a global pandemic to tell us that we cannot continue to manage our city the way we always have. It's time for change. It's time for leadership. I was born and raised here. I grew up on the north side in the community of Beverly, and there were many times where my home wasn't a safe place. And so I spent a lot of time in my community learning to skate at the outdoor rink. We called it a recreation facility, but if any of you have been to Floatin' Park in Beverly, it's a bit of a stretch. But fortunately for me, there were a number of people in my life that believed that I was worth investing in. And so I went on to be a leader in a global Fortune 500 company where I learned many skills. I want to put those skills to work to build a city that works for all Edmontonians. My platform is based on 3 simple principles. Place, a city we can be proud of. Partnerships, so that we can know our role. And third, potential. What is the future economy of this city?
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Please introduce yourself, Mr. Sohi.
I would like to begin my remarks by acknowledging that we are gathered on Treaty 6 territory. In the years before the pandemic, you could feel a sense of energy and optimism running through our downtown, and this building that I played a leadership role to make sure is the example. This excitement was felt by the whole city. It gave us a sales pitch when looking for investment, when attracting talent. I want to see us get back to that excitement and investment. A thriving downtown that you can live, work, visit, enjoy, and do business in is essential for any competitive, growing, and thriving economy. Next mayor would have to get to work the day they're elected. I'm looking forward to talking about the specific steps, immediate action that I will take to bring back life in the downtown, but also talk about the long-term vision and what we need to do to tackle social issues and other issues that are holding our downtown back.
Thank you, Mr. Sohi. And finally, please introduce yourself, Mr. Comrie.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Can everybody hear me? Hi, my name is Rick Comrie, and yes, I come from a hockey family. Here I stand in Rogers Arena. It's a beautiful arena. Unfortunately, it was painful for me to get to this arena today. The dysfunction in our city, the downtown core, the White Avenue, our failed community models to rejuvenate our respected areas. We are in crisis. You'll hear today that everything's fine. Following federal policy has been an enormous gamble. And today, the status quo is not acceptable. Do I bring you good news? Blocks from here, there are people dying from substance abuse. We must change our path that perpetuates society's issues. Proud to be here today as an Edmontonian. The City of Champions is a distant memory.
Thank you, Mr. Comrie. All right, we'll move on to our questions. Now, a reminder once again that you have 2 minutes per question for your answers. And we'll begin with Mr. Sohi. First question is on economic development and investment attraction. What are Edmonton's most significant economic opportunities relevant to downtown? And what actions would the city take to advance those opportunities under your leadership? You have 2 minutes.
So I have announced 3 specific policies. One is making sure that our permits that you apply for, the inspections that you require, are given in a guaranteed amount of time. We will measure their performance and benchmark against other municipalities with the goal of Edmonton being the fastest municipality. I have also proposed the creation of the Business Advocate Office, that you as business people, if you need to do business with the city, you should not be running around talking to 6 or 7 different departments. The role of this office will be to advocate on your behalf. I'm also proposing to create a permanent, sustained business council that will advise City Council, Mayor's Office, and the City Administration, selected from every sector of the business community, to have long-term input, telling us what is working and what is not working, and then making those changes. I also proposed the creation of the Edmonton Innovation Fund to support investments into technology and foster innovation to create jobs and create growth. I'm the only candidate here who have engaged with every province and every territory and the federal government to understand why economic growth and well-paying middle-class jobs are critical for creating stronger communities, vibrant communities, and inclusive communities. And I'm going to leverage my connections, my knowledge, and my experience to ensure that we are growing in the petrochemical sector, that we are investing in carbon capture, storage, utilization to reduce emissions, that we are investing in in the pharmaceutical sector, that we are investing in geothermal sector. There's so much potential in Edmonton that has been untapped, and I'm going to work hard to make sure that we're tapping into that potential.
Same question to you, Ms. Krashel.
Economic recovery and growth is top of mind for Edmontonians right now. That's why it's one of the core pillars of my platform. My plan for Edmonton will be real about who we are, but also bold about the fact our city has so much to offer. We'll connect our residents to new jobs, new ideas, and new ways of thinking and living by becoming a city test bed for innovation, to validate local technology and attract big tech that is looking for cities to pilot their technology. We will also work with our post-secondary institutions to ensure that we are aligned with current and future industry needs, as well as focusing on commercialization of research, which we have in abundance. And we will ensure that we have the best internet service in Canada, which not only helps Edmontonians, but also helps us attract remote workers from across our country and globally. I want to see our city aggressively market ourselves as a city where people can afford to own a home, access amazing amenities, enjoy amazing arts, entertainment, and sports, and live well. And we'll explore high-potential emerging industries that make sense, such as hydrogen, rare earth metals, agriculture, aerospace, and clean tech and logistics hub opportunities that leverage our homegrown talent and know-how to build a thriving economy for today and for the future. We will also need to work with our regional provincial partners to develop a provincial tech strategy, including industry incentives and tax credits, with a focus on companies that have a proven product and are revenue generating, but need to scale up, and we don't want to lose them. To help our existing businesses, I will ensure that as much as possible, every tax dollar we spend on infrastructure or anything we spend on will help local businesses keep people in jobs. I did that with the Neighborhood Renewal Program. Thank you.
We'll move on to Mr. Oshri.
So in the last 7 years, there's $4.4 billion has been invested in our downtown, and yet we're still struggling. And you know, capital is fluid. It's going to go where it's going to get the best return. So we have to make sure that we have the opportunity to get the best return for investors. And you know, one of the ways we do that is with low tax rates. And I've committed to a 2% tax decrease. I'm not supposed to name names apparently today, so I won't, but one of my opponents has got an 8% tax increase plan, which translates at a mill rate of 2.7 to almost 18% per year for businesses. So we need to get that under control. We have to leverage private sector connections locally and abroad, and I'm going to spend a lot of time selling the city locally to investors and then overseas to investors there. We have to support our tech sector. I know Kathleen Warren at Innovate Edmonton announced a $5 million fund today. I'm all in on that. We have to double it, in my opinion, and attract VCs and accelerators to our city. And the city government should not be picking winners. We're not qualified to pick winners in sectors. We're not qualified to pick businesses that we should invest in. We have to leverage expertise of others. We need the private sector to lead the way, and government needs to get out of the way and not pick those winners. And the way that I always phrase this, and whether it's a business trying to do something or a nonprofit trying to build something or a culture group trying to do something, the city's role should be, what are you building and how can we help you? Thank you.
Well, thanks, Mr. Oshri. We'll move on to you, Mr. Comrie.
Government must set the stage to ensure our success. You listen from your candidates here today that everything is about bringing in outside investment and high tech and all the people we're leaving behind. The city of Edmonton is in crisis as Don Iveson takes his final laps to the applause of his loyalists. He leaves a city in peril. Economic crisis is upon us. Stability, economic stability. On my platform, I call for an independent financial audit to make transparent for you, the taxpayer, as I get asked, how about my taxes? Why are they going up? You see, the taxpayer wants to know where their money's going, and so do I. But other candidates think we're looking to rebuild, let's bring in. How about stability? How about the foundation of who we are? That's why I'm here today, is it's about our foundation. Blocks from here, people are dying from suicide and overdose. Our business is failing right here in the community. I'm a business owner and I struggle. Maybe you do too. This isn't a happy time. This is a difficult time, and Edmonton needs someone who's firm. Policing and enforcement in our community is not acceptable. We need to get back to community policing. We need to do a better job. The status quo is just not acceptable. On my platform, 3 triannual mayor-taxpayer forums so that I can, we can, you can have a say, and that we keep our city council on task and in accordance with what you want as a taxpayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Comrie. And finally, same question to you, Ms. Watson.
At the risk of pandering to our host, I would offer that this is an incredible example of economic development. This is a fantastic example of a municipal and a private industry partnership. But we haven't even yet begun to fully appreciate the full value of the investments that have been made in this building. I believe that as a city, we need to take our investments in downtown more seriously. Recently, there was a recommendation that went to City Council that recommended investment in our downtown to make some very necessary improvements, to make it investment worthy to others. We committed $5 million. Now that does seem like a lot of money, absolutely. But in comparison, Calgary committed to a $100 million investment into their downtown for the reasons that Panita described at the very beginning of this conference. So goes your downtown, so goes your city. Now, not to paint a picture of doom and gloom, but our city and our downtown is in crisis. And so I was one of the first candidates that, through my experience on the Downtown Recovery Task Force, made a very clear policy recommendation about an investment in a central business neighborhood. It's a 5-point plan. The first one is investment in safety partnerships, because let's be real, it doesn't feel safe down here for a lot of people. How do you convince people to invest in an unsafe city? The second are business made simple. The third is enabling technology. Fourth, pathways that connect. And 5, transportation that serves the core.
Thank you, Ms. Watson. Our second question is on cleanliness and maintenance. We'll start with you, Mr. Comrie. Many downtown residents and businesses have noted a serious deficiency in the maintenance of downtown city property, like our sidewalks, roads, alleys, and parks. Do you think more city resources need to be spent on keeping things clean, well-maintained, and attractive downtown?
That's a great question. Today we have on the stage a member of parliament, a past member of parliament, who served in the Trudeau's government. But I oppose Justin's vision of who we are. The financial hardship it's brought on this community, his climate initiative is misplaced. The funding it's stealing, the billions of dollars of taxpayers, City of Edmonton taxpayers' money, is going to projects that, quite frankly, are a want, they're not a need. So when we talk about funding, we talk about where's the money going to come from? We must stop spending. A misplaced ideology, our crisis is functionality. We must alter our path The roadway system is unacceptable. This is Western society. This isn't a hamlet in Europe. Bicycling and scooters take priority over the automobile. The spender's in the automobile. They're not on bicycles. They're not on scooters. We must address the core issues in our city, and it's possible to do that. I need your support in order to accomplish that. This is not me, this is us as a community. But we must alter our path. We must look at our funding models. Because the Trudeau government has an alliance with Don Iveson doesn't mean it's turned out good. It's been an enormous gamble. And quite frankly, we're in crisis. But we can overcome that. Edmontonians are known for that. I'd like to champion that, but I need your support. Thank you.
We'll move on. Same question to you, Ms. Watson.
I believe the question was, should we be investing in cleanliness in our downtown? Yes.
Okay, we'll move on to you, Mr. Oshri.
Municipal level government gets 6 cents on the tax dollar. So for all the taxes that you pay, for everything you pay every day of your lives, 6 cents goes to municipalities. And with 6 cents, we have to make decisions that prioritize municipal level services. We're not here as a municipal government to save the world. We're here to provide municipal level services first and foremost. Municipal level services are police, fire, roads, parks, garbage, all the things that might be boring to some, I kind of find very interesting, which is one of the reasons I'm here. But we really have to make some smart choices and some difficult choices going forward. And our lack of management of projects, our lack of a really basic high-end tendering process, and our lack of coordination of transportation arteries, is just, it's brutal, to be perfectly blunt. And we seem to be putting the everything but core municipal services at the forefront and doing core municipal services off the side of our desk. We need to finish construction projects quicker. We need to coordinate them with EPCOR. We can't have 3 roads going to the West End all under construction at the same time. And we really need to focus on core municipal services and get out of a bunch of things that the city shouldn't be involved in. A quick example is the Blatchford development. We've invested $200 million of taxpayers' money. There's 20 townhouses built. If we want to achieve our environmental vision, our infill vision, we need to let the private sector do what the private sector does and finally generate some property tax out of the 600 hectares, for example. So there's all things like that the city does that we need to stop and get back to really what the core of a city is and what the services that a municipal government should be providing.
Same question to you, Ms. Krashel.
Core services and maintenance are absolutely critical. And in fact, many of you may not know this, but I was an executive assistant to a former city councillor working the front lines before I was a city councillor for 3 terms. And core services were critical. One of the things I introduced was the Neighbourhood Renewal Program, which today I am proud to say has fixed 237 of the 300 neighbourhoods in Edmonton. And most of those neighbourhoods are around our downtown, so that young people will come and live in our downtown area. The other thing that I did was supported this amazing arena, and I worked very hard in supporting this project. And I did so because it wasn't just about the downtown arena project and keeping the Edmonton Oilers. It was actually about helping our core services and maintenance. Because with the Community Revitalization Levy, the City of Edmonton, for everything within that CRL, for every building that the Cates Group builds, we get to keep the education tax and the market value assessment uplift for 20 years. And those dollars have to be used by council to fix the downtown. So one of the things I would do as your mayor is review our CRL commitments. It is critical that we finish this ICE district in order to have a vibrant and exciting downtown. And it is critical for our core services and maintenance. One final thing, I don't know about the rest of you, but it's hard to get around our downtown because of all the construction. I'm a big fan of construction, but this is a lot of construction. So one of the things I'm calling for is an actual focus on working with the utilities and our construction companies to make sure that when we're doing construction, we don't clog every road in our city. Thank you.
And finally, we'll move on to you, Mr. Sohi.
So let me highlight 10 immediate things that I will do. I will establish a much stronger and direct link between DBA and Mayor's office. I will immediately instruct City administration to improve planning and coordination between city departments, utility companies, private developers to reduce the impact of construction on businesses and visitors. I will allocate additional resources for cleanup and garbage pickup. I will immediately convene a meeting of police chief, police commissioner, and social agencies to develop a team of skilled responders to deal with disorder, aggressive behavior, and connect people to appropriate services. I will work with DBA and multicultural and indigenous communities to attract more festivals to downtown. I have proposed the creation of an arts recovery grant funding of $1.2 million that will help us animate spaces and venues throughout downtown. I will instruct city administration to work with DBA and Downtown Community League to create a small-scale community amenities, recreational leisure spots for downtown workers and residents like basketball courts, pocket parks, ping pong behind the library. I will accelerate the building of the much-awaited park in the warehouse district. I will do everything in the city's power to encourage companies to remain downtown and ask their employees to do so. I will work with the province and city council to ensure that their employees and our own employees are encouraged to remain active presence in the city. Some people want to diminish the role of the mayor's office. I want a mayor that is there fighting for you, with you, in the communities, in the trenches. That is the role that I will play if I get elected as your mayor.
All right, thank you, candidates. We'll move on to our next question on transportation and infrastructure. We'll begin with you, Mr. Oshri. This question is based on several audience questions that came in. People need to easily be able to get into, out of, and around downtown, no matter what their chosen mode of transportation is. Are we on the right track with our transportation infrastructure? And what would you do differently as mayor?
Well, thank you. On the right track is an excellent pun when we're talking about transportation into downtown. You know, I don't care if somebody wants to drive their car, if they want to take the train, take the bus, ride their bike, walk. If we can't get people downtown, then people aren't going to obviously come downtown, and the empty buildings, the empty retail outlets, the empty offices, the empty condos are not going to get fixed. And 70% of people in Edmonton still drive. About 15 to 17% take public transit. 5%, I hope my math adds up, 5% walk, 5% ride their bike. And so we have to make sure that if people want to come down by any means, they're able to. And so we have to make sure that our construction is fixed faster. The coordination is done higher and better. The LRT out to the West End, which contrary to what some people might say in the news, is not cancelable. I was a city councillor that pushed for it, and whether you like it or not now, the contracts are signed, the land's been expropriated, there's no stopping that train. So we've got to make sure that that's done on time, on budget, and then the usage of the transit service happens. The transit service is chicken and the egg. You know, on one hand, we've got to put more money into it in order for people to use it. On the other hand, people don't use it if there's not really good service. And so it's a really tricky thing to get right. But at the end of the day, we have to get all of these things right because we have to fill the buildings downtown. And the city's role also is to program downtown. There needs to be something happening here every night. After COVID's over, which it will be at some point, there has to be an event every night in this building, in Churchill Square, all around the city. And that's what the city can do to help get people down so we can get the businesses and buildings freed and create this really interesting, vibrant downtown, which is always the core of a successful city. And we need to get all of these things right. And it's a difficult task, but I'm stepping up because I believe I'm going to be the one to be able to do that. Thank you.
Same question to you, Ms. Watson.
I have to tell you, this politician thing is really interesting. And so when I get asked these questions, I'm going to do my best to answer them as posed versus pontificating and making false promises that don't even relate to the question. So the question was, are we on the right track on our infrastructure, transportation infrastructure? And I'm going to say no, and I don't know. So I'm going to say no because I watch how our infrastructure construction projects are being managed. And it seems to me that the entire city is under construction right now, and we're adding more and more and more construction projects, but I don't see any of them finish. And so I announced a smart construction project a number of weeks ago that proposed that when we do infrastructure projects, we have to recognize that the city doesn't stop moving. And so we need to manage our infrastructure projects better, which means smaller areas of construction so that we can get the work done more quickly and so that transportation is not impeded by construction. That I don't know would recognize that we're in a global pandemic right now, and our work and commute patterns don't look anything like they did a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And I would say that when we're thinking about how we're planning our transportation systems, we really need to recognize that we need to create agile and flexible transportation systems, because the world will never be the same again after today. The only constant in the world is change. And so I think we need to use that same principle when we're planning our infrastructure projects.
We'll move on to you, Mr. Sohi.
So, well-functioning infrastructure is critical for our economic growth, but also for our social well-being. I'm the biggest proponent of continue to build our LRT system. Yes, we need to improve the procurement process, and I will use my experience to do that. I'm very proud of the work that I was able to do on behalf of this city, attracting investments into our infrastructure. $1.2 billion to expand our LRT to the West End. $350 million to expand our Yellowhead Freeway to make sure that our goods and services flow freely. $50 million to great separation on 50th Street and 82nd Avenue rail crossing. If you live in the Southeast, know how long an irritant that rail crossing has been. Investment into Roxy Theatre, because I believe in investing in social infrastructure. Investment into Winspear Center. Investment into Citadel. These investments create jobs for hard-working Edmontonians. On the procurement, we need to make sure that our projects start on time, they finish on time, and they finish on budget. That is the commitment I have made, and I'm going to use my experience leading one of the largest infrastructure projects in Canadian history, the Gordie Howe International Bridge, and how we improved the process of procurement on that project to ensure that we had enough bidders and enough qualified people to lead that project. So absolutely, infrastructure is key, and we need to continue to build it.
Please go ahead, Ms. Krashel.
You know, I've been living in the tech sector. I left council and started 2 tech companies from scratch. And I am seeing some of the new technology. So one of the things I released was my policy on electric vehicles. We need, for transportation, for people to get around, we need to think about what's coming. So when it comes to our transportation, the first thing that I'm hearing at the doors is we need to make sure that if people want to get to our downtown, that our transportation is safe and that they feel safe. So that would be the first priority. And that means we need to get people back on using it. So we need our workers to come back downtown. We need people to continue to live downtown and use our transit system. We also need to review the outcomes of our newly rolled out on-demand bus service to see if it's actually meeting the needs for people who need to get to school or work, which also is important for getting to the downtown. I've already talked about construction and how critical it is for all modes of transportation to be able to get around this city, especially in our downtown. And I don't live that far from the downtown. I live right in the West End, very close to 124th Street. And so I see daily how challenging it is for all kinds of people to get to our downtown right now. And that is why I will definitely be focused on construction and making sure that we are getting things built on time and on budget. But when it comes to our infrastructure, I do think that with the pandemic, the game has changed. We don't know with commodity prices what we're going to be facing, and we don't actually know our full fiscal picture until the new city council is elected. 68% of the city's revenue comes from tax revenue. So I believe that we do need to review our capital plan and ensure that we are focused on projects that have fixed price contracts to ensure that we're protecting ourselves and our taxpayers from ballooning project costs that we simply cannot afford. So while I have supported the LRT, I do believe that we need to look at everything. And LRT is important, but so is making sure we can build and afford things. Thank you.
All right, finally, moving on to you, Mr. Comrie.
I love this topic. It's wonderful. Where's the funding going to come from? The member of parliament here has direct access to the Liberal government or the government at hand. Don't worry, money's easy. Bring it on. Let's spend. Write the checks. I don't think so. This is good. I love it. On my platform is a plebiscite on LRT and spending, and I'll tell you why. It's your money. It's your city, and Edmonton must remain the people's city. Be it a politician, be it in Ottawa, be it in Alberta, or be it right here in the city of Edmonton, tell you where you should spend your money. I think not. I call for an independent audit, and that audit will expose. It'll make transparent where this money is supposed to come from. Where is this money going to come from? Your taxes can only go up. I'm so sorry. The LRT is the biggest blunder we've got. Let me continue. Busing. When I get a call from Mary Louisa Nielsen, please visit my website because her video is now on my website. Busing is no longer available. Busing on demand doesn't work. People are dying in the downtown core. We talk about transportation and these big projects. And there's people right here on the stage who want to support massive expenditures, your tax dollars. Guess what? We are so dysfunctional, we don't have the funds, and an independent audit would expose that. But it would do that for you, not for me, but for us as a community, so we know where the money is and where it should be going. It's a want, it's not a need.
All right, we'll move on. Our next questions topic is arts and culture. We'll begin with your response, Cheryl Watson. This question came from Catherine. Our downtown arts organizations and venues have struggled over the past several years, facing issues like major downtown construction, revenue instability, and now, of course, the devastating impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. As mayor, what would you do to support these cultural institutions that are so significant to the identity and health of our city?
I served on the board of the Edmonton Art Council, and then I worked directly with Edmonton Economic Development Corporation, and there's now a spin-out new entity called Explore Edmonton. And so I know through both of those experiences that we spend tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer money on arts and festivals, and that's great. That is what creates the culture and the DNA of our city. But I also know that a lot of that money is spent attracting things from elsewhere to come here. And we know today that our arts, our festivals, and our venues are struggling. They have no ability right now to survive. And so I would propose that we, for a short term, 3 years, invest all of our money in arts and culture and festivals locally. So that makes sure that we can make sure that the festivals and the artists and the makers and the creators here in our city can get their legs back under them, can put food back on the table. This is an Edmonton-made commitment.
All right, we'll move on to you, Ms. Krashel.
You know, we can't have a vibrant and connected city or a vibrant downtown without arts and culture. We have to have a reason to attract people, and that's one of the most critical components. You know, I met with the festival organizers, I've been meeting with arts groups, and they are struggling. And what's interesting is they have, in some cases, different deals for capital projects than other arts organizations. So one of the things I'd like to do is coordinate and streamline that process so that everyone is treated fairly. The other thing that I think is important is to invest in arts and culture, and I would do so. I believe that it's important for us to have some more outdoor spaces. I've heard this from the arts groups. While we're dealing with COVID, and now let's face it, we're in our fourth wave, these arts organizations are at the brink and they need more outdoor spaces. So I have in my plan a quick way for us to get some outdoor venue spaces so that arts and culture groups can continue to at least provide us what we all love, whether it's the symphony, whether it's the festival in a box, or you name it. I will also commit to social inclusion by making Edmonton's arts and culture experiences accessible to citizens and visitors. I think that's really important. And I also think we need to work with our Indigenous groups and support showing the art that so many Indigenous people are making today. And we can do it by actually using some interesting innovation and technology. We can actually activate spaces that showcase some of the art that Indigenous are doing in our city. So I am committed to making sure that we don't lose our festivals and our arts organizations. Thank you.
Same question to you, Mr. Sohi.
Some of you may not know, but for a number of years as a newcomer, my connection to the community was through theater. I worked in a theater company that allowed me to make friends in the community, allowed me to express myself, and allowed me to actually use that as a vehicle to talk about social values and social justice and fairness. I deeply believe that investing in arts and culture is necessary for economic growth, but it's also necessary for social well-being and the vibrancy of the communities. Artists and people who practice work in the culture have been struggling the most during this pandemic. I think there's an opportunity for us to support them, at the same time revitalize our downtown. I see both working together. And that is why we announced $1.2 million funding for 2022 that we will invest in the arts and culture and help the artists make a living, at the same time create art that will help us bring more life to the downtown. But we also need to support equity-seeking artists. There are people here in this room who gave hours and hours of their time running festivals like Kerry West, right? And these people need our support because our multiculturalism, our Indigenous cultures can be a driver for economic diversity. But they also can be a vehicle for social inclusion and cohesion that we need in our city. The division that we're seeing in our city can be healed through arts and culture. I will also elevate the role of the arts and culture by creating an advisory council, Mayor's Advisory Council, regularly meeting and engaging with artists and cultural practitioners.
Please go ahead, Mr. Oshri.
Thank you. You know, not everything that we're all here talking about should be different and new and more. Sometimes it's okay to do what the city is currently doing, and I think we have to maintain what the city is doing, and so I will be doing the same. I will be supporting the Edmonton Art Council, the Edmonton Heritage Council, and support and problem solve with festivals because they do have problems along the way. And we have to also make participating in art programming accessible to everybody, regardless of their family's income. And I have an after-school free play program that I announced, which opens up all the city rec centers and soccer centers for every kid after school every day from 3:30 to 5:30, which also doubles as childcare. And this is a way that we can get recreation out to every kid in the city, many of whom have never been on a soccer team, never been to a rec center because they come from a troubled childhood or a parent, single parent, that sort of thing. And we can do the same for the arts programming in the city. And I'm really excited to announce that as well. We also have to have permitting for arts groups. All of our permitting in our city takes longer than 30 days. So whether it's a business or an arts group, I've committed to have 30-day permit timelines for the city. And then lastly, we have to continue to aggressively pursue major national and international events for our city, for downtown, like the FIFA 2026, the Red Bull Crash Nights, the International Triathlon. Tourism is coming back. And if we want to support the hotels and the restaurants and the economy of downtown, we have to continue to have these major events here. And I will be pushing for that going forward. And overall, we have to build a really interesting city, and arts and culture is part of it. We have to make sure our economy is strong. We have to make sure our river valley is accessible. We have to have reasonable priced housing. We have to have a great education system, which we have. And we have to have a really strong and vibrant arts community, which makes a huge contribution to the reason people are going to want to live and build a life in our city. Thank you.
Finally, please go ahead, Mr. Comrie.
I don't know, why am I always last? I don't know. Everything that's been said here I agree with, everything. But I think we can all agree with the concept that social wellness, arts and culture, and what it brings to a municipality, to a society is enormous. You know, the travel industry, the well-being to a community. I had opportunity to meet with Indigenous leaders, and if you check my website, we did a video, it's on the website, about their burial grounds on the north side of the Saskatchewan River. One of the comments was from one of the leaders was how important it was to have the culture remain, and how important, and here we are in Treaty 6. The irony in that statement is I do call for our electoral wards, and I have the support from Indigenous people on this, that we rescind the naming of our Indigenous names back to a number system of 1 to 12. And I just want to mention that the reason for that is democracy is for all. It cannot represent or promote any one ethnicity over another. But back to arts and culture with the Indigenous community. They certainly made a profound impact on me when we talked about their belief in the culture. And I think we all believe that. And I agree with everyone here, everyone.
All right, we'll move on to the next question. This one's on community safety, inclusion, and equity. And we'll begin with you, Kim Krashel. The DBA and their partners are working towards a downtown that is welcoming, safe, and inclusive for all who want to live, visit, work, or invest here. What does that mean to you? What do you think needs to change in order to achieve it?
So I have been spending a lot of time meeting with businesses in the downtown. I spent quite a bit of time in the Chinese Business Association area, and I have been also meeting with social agencies. And I think one of the things we need to get back to is community policing. I've heard from a lot of businesses that they were used to being able to interact with their beat cops that helped them be able to deal with some of the challenges that they were facing. And that has changed. We used to be known as a city for community policing, and today that's not the case. I've also recognized that we need to conduct a comprehensive review of our current approach to serving our most vulnerable residents that's more client service oriented. So when it comes to the agencies, we need to recognize that the people we're talking about are struggling with mental illness, they are struggling with substance use, and a whole number of issues that start when they are young, mostly when they had, unfortunately, trauma. So I think that we need to focus on supporting and really looking at, instead of focusing on one homogeneous group and treating homeless as if they're one group, we need to look at what are we doing about youth so that we can work on the prevention, because we're getting more and more youth homeless. What are we doing about partnering with REACH and having REACH work on what they're already doing, but more collaborative, with an actual focus on making it so that our agencies are creating a situation where they are able to serve the population 24/7 instead of just in certain hours, and they're pushing people into the businesses and into the community who need help, who need wraparound services. I also believe that we need to do a better job in terms of our housing and provide multi-generational housing and those kind of wraparound supports. And I do believe that we don't need a concentration of harm reduction sites. I support them, but not all of them in one place. We need to have mobile social services.
Thanks, Ms. Krashel. All right, this time you're second. Go ahead, Mr. Comrie.
Okay, so I'm in total agreement with a reboot. Justin calls it a reset. I don't agree. But a reboot based on the independent financial audit would be the guiding light for the next 4 years, possibly the next 8. And that would address these issues we're talking about. Funding is what's needed, what's required. But here's what I've learned. Maybe you could assume as a taxpayer. In my journey, I have found the bureaucracy, the levels of middle and upper management, and the cost to the taxpayer is enormous while people struggle on city streets. That's profound. See, we're a rich society. We're a rich society. Let me add this. We're financially broke. I digress. A few minutes ago, we're talking about funding. We cannot continue to write checks. The independent audit will be the template for the next 4, possibly 8 years. That will determine how we address these issues and, most likely, eliminate middle and upper management. The reduction. We must get boots on the ground. Kim said it earlier, that the mayor's going to have to hit the ground running. Well, guess what? Departments, we need to get active. We have pilot projects in place now, but nobody's getting help on city streets. We must alter our path that perpetuates these issues. And it's my intention that that financial audit will bring a greater, much greater discussion as to how we address these issues.
Please go ahead, Mr. Oshri.
You know, this all starts with meaningful reconciliation. I attended the TRC hearings back in, I think it was 2015, and spent 2 heartbreaking days listening to those stories. And it's enough platitudes. Like, we need action on this now. 60% of our homeless population is Indigenous, and it's only 5% of our city's population. So what I've committed to is creating an accountability week where we're going to meet with city leaders and Indigenous elders to go through the 10 actions of the TRCs. There's 94 TRC actions. 10 of them are specifically identified in the mandate of municipalities. And we're going to do something about that until they're complete. We're also going to partner with them economically in West Rossdale, down by the power plant. Chief Morin and I went down there, and they're interested in partnering to finally develop that piece of land. There's also 231 calls of justice from the Indigenous Murdered and Missing Women's Report, most of which deal with municipalities, and we haven't done anything about that. So we really need to reconcile the past and move forward with our Indigenous partners, first of all. Secondly, around the broader homeless population and safety, you know, safety doesn't have to be at the expense of vulnerable people. There's policing opportunities with partnering with social services like HELP and the NET teams that can really move the needle on safety and help as many people as possible. There's 800 people living in shelters, 2,500 homeless people, 1,000 more than last year, 1,000 more. And we can do better than letting people sleep on the streets. And so I've committed to spending money on 200 homeless units per year for the next 4 years, $50 million on land acquisition, and $70 million financing home ed for under-market housing. And I gotta tell you, it's enough. I'm so frustrated and sick and tired of these platitudes, and we have to step up and do something to help people in those situations and to increase the safety of our downtown. Thank you.
All right, your turn, Ms. Watson.
When I think about safety and equity, I think about all of the attacks against women that we are seeing and we're hearing. We have missing Indigenous women. We have violent attacks against Muslim women wearing hijab. And here's the issue, that women make up more than 50% of the population, and yet many of us don't feel safe to walk down some of Edmonton's streets. My walk looks much different than our current mayor's walk to and from work looks. When I leave my office downtown here at 8 or 9 o'clock, I think I should probably tell someone I'm leaving the office right now. I put my keys between my fingers, and I'm very aware of who's around me. It is one of the city's prime jobs to make sure that Edmontonians feel safe. And so I've recently released a policy making a commitment to create a city that is safe for women and girls, building on the UN Women's Global Initiative that recognizes that if you create a safe city for women and girls, it's a safe city for everyone. And so this policy has some very specific tactics around better lighting on our streets and sidewalks, about recognizing that we feel safe when there's presence in certain vulnerable locations. And when we use data and reporting to say there are unsafe hotspots in our city and we actually do something about them. This policy relies on very proven practices around the globe, and in 2015 we signed up and committed to implementing them. I'd actually like to bring that to a reality.
Finally, please go ahead, Mr. Sohi.
My vision is to build an Edmonton for all of us. That means feeling safe in our communities. And too often, women, racialized communities, and many others do not feel safe in our community. I have been a victim of crime. When I drove taxi, I was robbed. I was spit at when I was a bus driver. Recently, a couple of weeks ago, I was door knocking in a neighborhood in Millwoods. Someone who knew me called me a convicted terrorist. Too many people are being marginalized because who they are and how they look and what they wear. That is unacceptable in a city like ours. That is why the first thing I did was announce our 100-day plan to tackle hate and hate violence in our city. That plan will include empowering communities, looking at our bylaws, working better with the police, and tackling racism and discrimination in our city, and moving forward on reconciliation with Indigenous communities. But safety is also impacting our businesses. You have seen that in the downtown. You will experience that in the Chinatown and other business districts. So it is tied to economic growth. It is tied to social well-being. That is why one of the immediate actions that I would take, that I talked about, is convene a meeting of the police commission, police chief, and others to come up with a plan that will provide us the right intervention to provide support to those who are struggling with mental health, addiction, and poverty. And I look forward to leading our city to be much, much safer for all of us.
We'll move on to our final question. This one's on intergovernmental relations and priority setting. We'll begin with you, Mr. Comrie. One of the most important jobs of our new mayor is going to be building productive, positive working relationships with both the provincial and federal governments. Why are you Edmonton's best choice for building those relationships?
I can say no with a firm hand. Interesting, isn't it? You know, the federal government is pushing upon the municipalities an agenda you can't afford. I think I just said it a minute ago. We're financially broke. Well, we'll give you more money. We have a member of parliament here, direct connection to the federal government. You want money? You can get money. Money's easy. That's not how you build a community. And Justin has shown that to us. I want to say this, we're in crisis now. I can't overstate that enough. So to deal with provincial and federal governments, the door is always open, and you must collaborate. You must get along. You must be able to communicate. I'm a business owner. I pride myself on relationships and relationship building. That's the easy part. But saying no, sometimes it's tough. The bank could come to you and say, listen, we're going to give you $1 million. You might have to pay it back someday, but would you take it? You'd have to think twice, wouldn't you? Yeah, we've had too much debt pushed upon us. The financial audit would expose that. The relationships and relationship building is easy. That's the easy part. But the difference in agendas plays a bit of a factor, and it should. It should. That's why there's division in this country. I think the easy part is relationships and relationship building. It's saying no to some way being pushed upon you. My goodness, we're in a mess. I sure hope you leave here today with some thoughts about we're in crisis. You've heard that this afternoon. Thanks so much.
Same question to you, Ms. Watson.
This is such a critical role of the mayor, as you mentioned, and so I have a good deal of experience of intergovernment partnerships, both when I was in my international role with Intuit. We were responsible for market entry, and so we had to form brand new relationships with governments that we hadn't, government partners we hadn't met before. And then later on, when I was the vice president of Innovate Edmonton, really advocating for our innovation sector. Here's the key in a partnership, as many of you in this room know. There's two aspects that are really important. First is mutual respect, and the second is that you recognize that it's a two-way partnership. We do need to repair our current relationship with the provincial government right now. It is fractured and it is broken because we haven't approached that partnership in that way. So I propose to use some of my experience and practice around resetting the partnership with our provincial and federal government with those principles that I described, mutual respect and two-way partnerships, so that we can identify common ground, remove barriers so that we can work together effectively, because the only way that we will solve our biggest challenges is collectively. I would also offer that when I was leading in the innovation space, it was really much more effective when we joined partnership with Calgary so that we could prevent any political games or even complexity of having two major cities both advocating to the same funders and same partners. And so I'd apply the same principles that we used with the Alberta Innovation Corridor Partnership and extend it to include all economic partnerships.
Please go ahead, Mr. Sohi.
I see three roles for mayor's office. One is making sure that our city corporation is run as efficient, as effective, delivering quality public services at the most affordable tax rate and user fees. That is the core responsibility of the mayor's office. The second role is being a champion of the community, to each other, to heal the wounds, bring people together, to articulate the racial pain and dilemma and reconciliation work that we need to do. Bring people together to build that inclusive place that we all call home. And the third role, equally critical role, is working with provincial governments, federal governments, and regional partners. I have dealt with every province and every territory from coast to coast to coast, negotiating most complex deals, delivering billions of dollars for infrastructure, and tackling one of the most controversial projects in Canadian history, the Trans Mountain Pipeline Expansion Project. I was able to do that because I believe in listening to people, trying to find common ground, trying to find how we can work together. And that is the approach I will apply to my role in intergovernmental relations, using my experience, speaking as a collective. I will build a coalition of leaders from this room, from community organizations, from nonprofit sector. When we engage with the provincial government, when we engage with the federal government, it is not a mayor's office that is talking. It is the community that is talking. And that's how we will make a difference.
Your turn, Mr. Oshri.
Well, thank you. You know, the federal government spends their money in municipalities per capita. So they're focusing on housing, environmental issues, transit, and they spread that around the country based on per capita. And in fact, over the last few years, Edmonton has gotten less than our per capita share. So for all the connections we seem to have with the Liberal government, we really haven't even gotten our fair share. The really vitally important relationship is with the province. And the City of Edmonton has been fighting with the province for years now. And we've lost out investment on our airport, our tech sector, our post-secondary institutions, as well as many other facilities like that, and we've lost that to Calgary because we've been fighting with the provincial government. At our last budget, the last provincial budget, Edmonton's #1 ask was $5 million for affordable housing. $5 million, which is a rounding error on a rounding error at the provincial budget. And the province said no, and they said no because of political gamesmanship with the mayor's office in our city. And so what we need to do is we need to fix that disastrous relationship. Lecturing other levels of government might feel good, but it doesn't produce results. So my plan would be to sit down with the Premier and the provincial government and find 3 or 4 things that we agree on, 3 or 4 issues that we have the same outlook, and get some early wins for the City of Edmonton. And then build on that with that government or any other new government that might come in a couple of years, and build on that relationship. And the goal of the mayor, the only thing the mayor's office should be thinking about when dealing with the province is what is the best possible deal I can get for the City of Edmonton. And that's not what's been happening the last few years, and I'm going to definitely change that. Thank you.
Finally, same question to you, Ms. Krashel.
You know, when I was on City Council, we had good relationships with all levels of government. And I think it's so important for Edmonton's next mayor to have a strong working relationship with all levels of government. And regardless of their political stripe, that is the mayor's role, and our future depends on it. On Monday, we all re-elected a minority Liberal government, but we could have easily seen a change at the federal level, and we all know there is instability right now at the provincial level. So I think what Edmonton needs is a mayor that isn't focused on what political party is in office, but a mayor that is focused on how we're going to work with all parties. And so that we're not sitting there crossing our fingers on election night. We need a leader with a track record of true collaboration. And that doesn't just mean working with the federal government and the province. That means working with all of the mayors of municipalities across this province. That means really focusing on Northern Alberta and all of the mayors that we had relationships with in the north, as we are the gateway to the north. That also means that we need a mayor that is committed to leadership, and that means transparency, accountability, team building, and collaboration. And I would go so far as to say, if we want good relationships with our Indigenous population, we need the mayor to actively work with the bands and Indigenous leaders and treat them like they want to be treated, with respect and as another level that is critical for our success in Edmonton. Because one thing that I have always loved about the City of Edmonton, and that I think is critical to protect, is that we don't allow party politics and candidate slates in our municipal election. Otherwise, we will not be functional. We won't be able to find common ground, whether it's right or left, which is what we've been so good at in the past. So I encourage you to choose a mayor that wants to work with everybody. Thank you.
All right. We'll end with closing statements. You only have a few short weeks left to talk to voters before Election Day on October 18th. What is the most important thing that the voters here who are invested in the future of our downtown need to know about you before they cast their vote. A reminder that you have 1 minute, and we will begin with you, Mr. Sohi.
If the past 18 months have shown us anything, it is that leadership matters. We can't always predict what challenges will emerge, but we can choose leaders who will lead with integrity, with the compassion and the right temperament, and who will do everything they can do to bring people together rather than divide them. If you elect me as your mayor, I'm committed to getting the basics right. But cities are more than just basics. We want a convener, a bridge builder, someone who can bring people and communities together to make better decisions and heal our divisions. I want to be the champion of Edmonton's need in these challenging times more than ever. Thank you so much for having us today.
Thank you, Mr. Sohi. Please go ahead, Mr. Comrie.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here today with the candidates, and I have to applaud them, and I do. They all have great points, and they're all great people. But government must set a stage to ensure our success. It's a role of responsibility. I've said this once, I'll say it again, that Edmonton must remain the people's city. It's not the politicians, personal agendas aside. It's your money, it's your city, and it's your vote that matters. But your voice must be heard. You must choose a mayor that will listen. Triannual, annual meetings is on my agenda. I want your voice to be heard. Vote for Rick Comrie. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Comrie, and on to you, Ms. Watson.
If you want more of the same, then I'm not your choice. I'm here as an everyday Edmontonian, someone who worked hard to get where they are today. I'm an experienced business leader that has built a career on results, not promises. If you want change, you have the ability to affect this. I believe it's time for an outside perspective, a new way of looking at our problems and our opportunities. Now, someone once told me, Rocky Sinclair, that I was speaking with lately, that he had never met anyone from Beverly that didn't know how to fight. That is true. So when you think about the city that you want to see, who here do you believe on this stage is going to push and fight hard enough to restore our downtown and our city to the pride this capital city deserves?
Thanks, Ms. Watson. Please go ahead, Mr. Oshri.
Well, thank you to the DBA and for all of you for being here. And I want to leave you with this final thought. You know, you heard my specific plans, and you can go to my website or look at the brochure for 25 specific platforms which outline how I will practically address many and more of these issues. And I know I'm not the smoothest speaker. I don't speak in platitudes. I'm pretty straightforward. But what you will get from me is what I will do, how I will do it, who I will partner with, how much it will cost, and where the money is going to come from. So I suggest, if I may suggest, please ask yourself, who is the best person to fix the challenges of our city, to install fiscal discipline, to attract investment, and to be able to work with council and get the best deal from the province and take care of people that need it, and then to best represent the city on the world stage. So I ask you for your support to help me lead our city out of the current challenges that we have and into what I know can be a very bright and prosperous future for everybody. Thank you for being here.
And finally, you have 1 minute, Ms. Krashel.
You're all here today because you are dedicated citizens and business leaders who understand how important this election is. You know, I came to Edmonton for love, but I fell in love with Edmonton and have been here for 28 years. And I love this city, and I'm optimistic about our future. I am the only candidate who's presented a very comprehensive plan, and I did it very early. But let's be real. No platform can anticipate everything that our city and council will face over the next 4 years, and nor should it. So I think what you need to know is what you can expect from me as a leader. I have a proven track record of getting things done for our city, and I have a balanced and bold approach, and I'm a team and collaborative person. On October 18th, please don't vote against something, vote for something. A vote for me is a vote for Edmonton. Thank you.
All right, well, I hope that that has provided some clarity. Of course, if you do have questions, we want to encourage you to continue the conversation going on social media. You can use the hashtag YEGDTForum. Thank you so much to our audience that's here in person. It's so nice to do an event in person and see your faces out there, albeit with some masks on. And of course, thank you to those that are watching virtually. You can still stream the event later on if you want to watch again and maybe hear something one more time. A huge thank you to the candidates for showing up today. We really appreciate your perspectives and your opinions. The Downtown Business Association and of course the Oilers Entertainment Group, thank you so much for hosting us. You can stay and you can mingle here until 6:30. We're going to keep the bar open until then. And then we encourage you to head to the JW Marriott Lobby Bar if you want to continue to network. And once again, please remember to vote on October 18th. Thanks so much, everyone.